So I am honored to have on stage here with me a very good friend, Neil Geurin, head of, and I have to get this right? Distribution strategy and implementation, retailing strategy and implementation.
I actually just make up a new title every week. I work in global sales. That's what I tell people these days.
Well, you are one of the greatest partners we've ever had. So really, really happy to have you here. But Neil, honestly, it's more than anything. This is a huge space for you to be able to share. World Travel is a huge American Airlines shop, and we are thrilled to be working with you. So I guess the first thing that we wanted to address is let's get the elephant out of the room and talk about that little blimp that we hit in terms of a relationship. But we have seen over the last couple of months a very different American Airlines. Very, very different. And I will say, and I speak for all the corporate buyers here, we have seen the steps, being taken to just completely change the trajectory and the direction in which you're moving in terms of partnering with corporations, with TMCs. So could you share a little bit more about what is at the center of that for American Airlines?
Yeah, and I think probably the right way to walk through that is to go back to the kind of the years leading up to the blip, because I think it makes more sense. Because honestly, I can sit here and tell you that people matter and that relationships matter, and I bet all of you will just roll your eyes at me because of course they do. And as a guy who I've worked for American for 22 years and started in our loyalty program. I worked in sales for a long time. One of the biggest mentors of my career was Allison Taylor, for those of you that know Allison. Someone I just love and think the world of. And then in 2017, there was just to give you a quick background, there was a leadership role at American in the sales organization that I really wanted. And there was also a leadership role open over distribution at American that I had not thought about for 10 seconds. And Allison asked me in her office and she said, "Hey, which of these two jobs do you want?" And I was like, sales job. And she said, "Congratulations, you run distribution now." And I said, "Oh man, I don't even know how to spell NDC, let alone tell anyone what it is." And so, I spent the years kind of leading up to this blip in the distribution space, primarily doing two things. One was rethinking the way we work with our GDS partners. One of the goals I had in that role was to take, Erika mentioned, and I think all of you know probably that American and Sabre specifically have had their challenges over the years. To me, I looked at that and thought, that's super counterproductive. Very thankfully, I eventually had a partner on the Sabre side in Erika that thought the same. There's got to be a better way than all of us being at each other's throats all the time. So we wanted to try to bring peace to that relationship as much as possible, but also to help move NDC forward. At American, we'd been working on NDC. That question earlier, when's the first time you heard of NDC? I think I'm going to win the prize, because the first time I heard of NDC, we didn't even call it NDC. It was American started what is NDC now in 2006, and we gave it to IATA in 2011. So American had been working on this for 18 years. My team had spent 5 years integrating NDC into the GDSs because our agency partners had said that's how they really wanted to consume it. And we were great with that, so it was a huge effort. All of that had launched. We're in the pandemic, taken on massive amounts of debt to try to get through that in a business that doesn't run huge profits or even small profits to begin with most years. And so there was just a giant desire for change in a lot of ways. And we had technology that when customers used it, they gave us higher customer satisfaction scores in their surveys with us, both when we looked at our own website and when we looked at agencies that were looking through more modern technology platforms. So there was just a huge desire to go embrace that as fast as possible. When it started, the goal was to roll it out by the end of 2025. And maybe if we'd stuck with that plan, we would be in better shape. But as we started going, it was just this incremental desire to go faster and faster and faster. And so eventually, it got to the point where it was just a snowball rolling downhill that I think pretty clearly ran out of control. So the last 6 months really have been about, let's take 5 giant steps back, rethink all of this. what should we be doing? How should we be doing things? How should we be interacting with both our partners and our customers to be better partners to them? And a lot of it goes back to the kinds of things that Allison was preaching years ago about the ways we work with our partners. And so we've had the opportunity to really kind of step into that. It's a long, long, hard process, but we've had a chance to sort of rebuild a sales organization at American, which has been quite interesting.
Yeah. And just, I mean, I do want to say, in all fairness to the blip is what we're calling it, the blip. The numbers that Lori...
If everyone's good with that, can we call it a blip? All right, great.
So if it hadn't been for the blip, and I do say American Airlines has been just always spearheading innovation. I will say that. And, you know, although it's been called sometimes disruption, it is disruption with a purpose. It is driven by the idea that we need to move the needle in our industry. And I think that from some of the numbers that we saw from Lori, really, if that blip hadn't occurred, I don't know that embracing NDC would have advanced as much as it has here in the US market, had it not been for you guys. So having said that, I am glad we're pivoting. And
me too.
And that's a very good thing, but I do think it makes a difference. So on that note, I would say, you know, there have been some shifts to commercials, some of them kind of coming back to things of the way things were, quote unquote. But you still do have now that foundation of the advance that you made around NDC. But in these commercial changes, what is the key objective that American Airlines is trying to achieve?
Yeah, so I said a moment ago that we're rebuilding a global sales organization. So I've been an American since 2002, and in that time, I don't know of a single time that we've tried to build or rebuild an organization of the size and scope of what we are attempting to do now. And so we can look at the blip and say, hey, that was awful that happened, but there are some positives for the future, and one of them is, you know, we were like the rest of the industry. There were a lot of processes and procedures at American in the sales organization that had lived for 15 or 20 years that were ripe for being refreshed. But it's really hard to do that in a corporation, as many of you know. So what this opportunity gives us is we can go look at everything we do and think about, are there better ways to do it? Did the technology that we have in place with our agency partners and our corporations that we work with, was that good enough? Do we need to share better data? Are there things like that we could go do? We could rewrite that software right now in the right way. So the most important thing we're doing right now is simply listening to people, because we're not going to get another shot at this. We get one. And so because this is going to take us probably, like in total, years to get even close to right, we want to do it in the best way we possibly can. So we spend a lot of time meeting with, listening to, reading about, listening to podcasts where some of you are talking about your businesses. Whatever we can do to get better information about what we should be focused on, that's what we spend our time doing.
And is there, I mean, in the months since you're sort of pivoting back to this, okay, let me get really closer to the corporate buyers, see if we have the right tools. You know, you're already doing this at a different base than you were before, right? Because the technology has taken, I don't know if I would call it a leap, but it has certainly advanced. Mm-hmm. There is certainly a bigger appetite to adopt NDC. You've heard it here. Everybody's kind of like, okay, do I incorporate in my policy? Once I finish understanding it, is it something that I definitely want to engage in? But as you are getting feedback, what has been maybe the most consistent piece of feedback that you've heard and that you think is valuable towards how you shape your strategy moving forward?
Oh man, that's a hard question. Yeah, we've heard a lot from everybody. I think key items are actually, it's not the big stuff, it's the little stuff. Right? One of the things we turned on last week was the ability for corporate customers to board in group 4 instead of group 7, if that's where they were, if they didn't have status, and to choose the seat they want on the plane. And again, I know a lot of you are probably looking at me like, yeah, of course that's important, but it was gone, right? And when we went out and met with corporate travel managers right after the blip, the first thing they told us was, hey, you can convince me, but you need to convince my travelers to fly you if you really want to be successful. And the way you're going to do that is not through some big grand thing. It's going to be 100 small things that you do well every day, and you do them consistently for a very long time. So it is, we don't look at this as, okay, well, if we do thing X, check the box, we nailed it. The reality is we're just going to have to find ways to appeal to customers for their own reasons. We're going to have to be working within your policies. We're going to have competitive rates on the shelf for you, so that people have a chance to pick us. And then when they do, it's a fight. We're going to have to go convince people why American's a better choice for them than Delta or United or Southwest or whoever it may be that they're choosing to fly. And that's going to be a kind of like on the ground tussle to go try to do that in the best way possible. But we definitely want to do it in a spirit of partnership as we go through the process.
All right, so let me pause right there. How many of you feel like this is really a different American Airlines on stage than you had seen in a while? Show of hands. Show of hands.
7 of you. Great.
A little clap, a little clap. Okay, we can clap. This is really, really good.
Okay, sorry. I was holding the mic wrong.
I was like, oh my God.
I'm the tech guy, and I'm holding the mic wrong. This is great.
I worried for a minute. I couldn't see the gentleman. I was like, is he seeing things? Did he just have like a revelation after saying all of these things? But no, okay. You're good? Microphone's good?
I think so.
All right. So this is really refreshing, and I think that the main thing, we've had a couple of forums with American Airlines, with our buyers, and you've been gracious enough to share your team with us and engage. But I think the key thing for all of us is really, as I hear you saying all of these things, it's that listening mode, right? And how serious and how methodical you are being around, we're not taking it for granted. We're taking it step by step. We are listening to the little things, and it will be over time. I think that I can tell you, not only as a TMC, but I think I speak for some of our customers, not being taken for granted is a very, very big deal. So honestly, to hear you say these things, huge kudos to you and your executive team for listening. Now, we have to see if it sticks, but
yeah, that's exactly it, right? I mean, it's one thing to listen, it's another thing to actually do something with the information and then to stick with it over the long term. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to earn back your trust and loyalty, and it's not going to happen this month, this year. It's going to take a while, and so, I think what we're asking is that you all hold us accountable to that. We're going to constantly be out talking to people. If you don't feel like we're doing it well, you will absolutely never hurt my feelings by telling me that. So I'm asking you, you all can, Erika has my contact information. If you need it, you can get to me. We would be happy to hear what you have to say.
All right, so let's go a little bit more into distribution, because I know that that is a topic that fascinates both of us. So let's dig a little bit deeper there.
Okay.
So American Airlines has been a trailblazer, to say the least, in many ways for our industry and what is the North Star regarding artifact versus, GDS distribution. So in the next wave of GDS negotiations, as they start to come up, and no, not any confidential information, but just what would be sort of that North Star of what it is that you're looking for in regards to content, channel, how are you feeling about that?
Yeah, I just think that whole story has changed quite a bit in the last couple of years, and I don't think it's because of the blip at all. I think it's more just the needs and wants of the travel community have changed a lot. And so I think what we're looking for are partners who want to work with us on the technology side as much as possible to make better products and services available to customers. I might be the weirdo in the industry on NDC because I actually think the benefit of NDC isn't selling more stuff. It's actually the better servicing that we'll all figure out how to do. We've already sort of accidented into a number of ways that we can service more effectively with NDC than Edifact in certain situations. We have to blow those out to the rest of them. But the story 10 years from now on better technology might simply be just that it's a more seamless experience for customers when they book, not that they're buying something that they weren't buying before. So I think what we're looking for in partnerships are people who are willing to engage on that front and figure that out going forward. Now, the next time we negotiate a Sabre AA deal, I expect neither one of us will be at that table. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that.
That is true. Neither one of us. Well, I won't be at that table for sure, but but I don't know about you.
And I love it, but I hope I'm not there either. So I'll let somebody else do that.
What do you mean? As much fun as we had? Come on.
I thought about bringing our contract just to show these folks because it's actually a book. Like literally, it's a book, and we spent whole days in rooms like debating the word "a" or "the" on sentences, which is no fun for anybody. So this is a lot more fun.
Yes, I fully agree. I fully agree. But you know, it is an interesting space, and I do think that it's a bit of a 180 shift for American Airlines to sort of be embracing channels and really, you know, be trying to address choice versus necessarily the technology through which content is accessed. So I think that's a huge pivot. I mean, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah. Look, I know that probably the world thinks that we were pushing for the technology's sake. We really did have a belief, and still do have a belief, that better technology will unlock value for end travelers. How we get there needs to be a collective effort. There's no doubt about that. If you ask me how this all went wrong, why we started in 2006 and it's still not what it needs to be today, I think there's a lot of parties that could look back at this and say we could have done it differently. I don't think there's a way for industry technology to change because one party, whether it's the airlines, the agencies, the booking tools, the GDSs decide to do it, it has to be everybody deciding it's a necessary thing that we want to do together because it's hard. Super, super hard.
I do think that's what we've learned sort of the hard way, and whether it be through forums like, you know, the one that ARC provides where we all come in together, all of the stakeholders, and, you know, we're fortunate to have a seat at the table represented by Pam Zever, our head of operations. It is really difficult because it is complex. It's complex for the buyers to understand what it is that they're getting out of it, and as Lori had mentioned as well, I think that the picture wasn't fully painted, and everyone expects everything to happen at once, and it's this evolution in baby steps, right? But along those lines, we've also touched a little bit here about offer and order and what that means. Could you share a little bit more for American Airlines, what that means to you, and how are you thinking about navigating towards that?
Yeah, so, and if you're hearing this term, offer order, for the first time today, I'm so sorry. You know, it's like people hearing NDC for the first time, which there might even be some in here that are hearing that as well. And if you want to know what that is, Lori was great. I would totally put her. But the reality is, when we look at the way we sell things and the way customers engage with the products and services that they buy, everyone in this room knows it's super complex if you need to go make a change to your ticket, or if you decided you wanted to pay for a bag and add that. Sometimes you have to jump through amazing hoops to go do that across the travel space. And it's certainly true across all the airlines. But think about the experience you have when you buy something from Amazon or Walmart or someone like that online, where you have a shopping cart, you have the ability to go look at your entire order maybe before it ships and change something in that order pretty seamlessly. That doesn't exist in the airline space. And so what we would just like to be able to do, both for our customers and honestly for ourselves too, because all of this complexity is very expensive and very hard to manage internally, is simplify that so that it just acts more like other retailers. And the customers, especially as we talk about the Gen Z customers that are coming, they are not going to understand this complexity. They're not going to appreciate this complexity, and they're not going to forgive any of us for this complexity. So we're going to have to figure out how to make this a lot easier. And so for us, it means a total rewrite of our systems. What I don't want to undersell, though, is how hard this is going to be. Like, NBC is very easy compared to offer order. This is going to be, in the airline space, for us, something we're working on now. It's going to be 5 or 6 years of effort, probably. There will be elements that roll out to the world. But I think we've learned a lot from NBC. And one of the things I tell people about NBC often is that we screwed this up, right? Like, you don't want to know how the systems at Amazon work. You want to order something and have it show up at your door, right? Talking to people about how distribution technology works is always a bad idea, unless you're in a room full of IT professionals who are writing the technology, right?
So I think with offer order, what we want is for the benefits to start showing up, but no one actually knows that something is changing in the background as much as possible. But those changes will impact everybody in this room, and so we need to do them collectively as much as we can.
Now, I think that, honestly, if nothing else, what that really shows, I guess, is a lot of maturity on behalf of the learnings, right? Just to be able to, even at this very early stage, be able to talk about that in the way that you just described. That is a very different approach, Neil. It's something that I think we'll all be grateful for, because it will go a long way in just taking to heart the fact that, yes, while you are the first of many, many things, you're also the fastest to learn. So kudos for that. That's a big deal.
Sometimes we learn because we grab the stove when it's hot and just burn the crap out of ourselves.
And I just want to say, when you were referencing Gen Z and you looked at me, it was me, right? Not my daughter, like you. Absolutely not Gen Z. So let me ask you, Neil, are you okay if we open it up for questions?
100%.
All right. Okay. All right, people, this is your time in the sun. Oh, Kim, bring it on. She's your biggest fan.
Okay.
Kim Bivens, Voucher. Neil, this is the third time I've had an opportunity in the last month or so to sit down with an executive from American, and I appreciate that. Because I know it's not easy to come and sit in front of a group of travel professionals as frustrated as we've been with the blip. What I will say is, and those other folks have been stellar. The customer enablement team, who's working hard to try to get agreements out there and to try to rebuild some of that trust, has been stellar. The folks in your world, Jay and some of the other folks that have come to speak to us, for those of us who've had the privilege, have been stellar. I hope that you are one of the executives, but I hope that those folks at the very top of your organization appreciate the fact that you all are taking the hits for decisions that were made with their approval. Because certainly the gentleman who came up with the strategy did not make those decisions to move the whole organization that way. So I hope they appreciate that. And what I will say is this: I fight every day to try to remove my own bias from my frustration with American to make the best decisions in our program for our travelers. And so I appreciate the fact that you are reintroducing some things like seating in group 4 instead of group 7, and trying to make those chips away at rebuilding the trust with us. I also said this to Jay. The folks that need to hear this aren't you. They're the folks that sit up in the C-suite. They are the ones that need to understand that they're the ones that broke our trust. You're just being charged with carrying out how to repair it. And so I hope that message is making its way to them. In addition to, I'm not going to presume that everybody in this room feels the same way, but I do know that there are some folks in this room that I spend a lot of time with, and that trust, like you said, will take a very long time to come back. But I would say this: you and your team are going a long way towards rebuilding it. Customer enablement is going a long way towards rebuilding it. And so I hope they appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. Yeah. Look, I really do appreciate that, and I would say a couple of things. One, I was at an event last week where our CEO and our Chief Strategy Officer, who's currently running our commercial team, sat on stage in a room with 45 corporates, and I think they heard what we would have said if they were sitting here, and they responded to it. And like I told somebody earlier, one of the things I heard our CEO say is that the last 6 months of his life have been the hardest 6 months of his life, and he's never doing this again if he, unless he gets taken out of the position, right? So he's got to struggle on that too. To give you a little more clarity, though, on how they hear that message, because I think that's a very fair point you make. One of the things that changed American is every Thursday afternoon, we sit in a room with every one of the executive leaders of American, and we talk about you. We talk about all of you. I'm leaving here to go join that meeting this afternoon, and I'm going to be asked, what did people have to say? What were they concerned about? What did you hear in passing? What is this? And they want to know the answers to those things. I think one of the really good things for American that's changed in the last 6 months is we went from a world where when we had Allison, to be fair, everyone just assumed Allison had it, because most of the time she did, right? And so it allowed the executives maybe to outsource some of this a bit. But the reality is this change has forced them to get very, very close to how customers feel, how partners feel. They're taking calls. You know, the CEO of American has called his counterparts at like 30 different companies and simply to let them have a chance to say what they think. And so I think he's heard a lot of this. He doesn't shy away from it. If he was sitting here, he would tell you this is his shop and this is his, you know, his responsibility. So there's a ton of conversation with those guys. They very much know what you said is true. You know, in the case of the folks that work with World Travel, Jay, Claudia, and Katie, who are here in the back and will be upstairs if you want to go by and see them, they're some of the just absolute best human beings that work for American Airlines. I've worked with both Jay and Claudia, I think 4 or 5 different times each in my career, and for some reason they keep coming back and working for me again, so I'm very blessed. But it does make it easier and better. It gives us a better chance to be successful that they are who they are. But you're right, it has to be an entire operation at American that recognizes what this is, what happened, what we did, own it, and start reacting to it. And that, I can promise you that is happening within the leadership team at American. You know, they can't be everywhere, but they've been out on the road, they've been talking to customers, and they've heard a lot. Some things that I think really open some eyes, and certainly as we reestablish the sales team, when you see the kind of growth the sales team is going to have, it's going to have because of that, because they actually have a much better insight on what it is to go out and build these relationships and why they matter than they ever had before. And we can debate whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but the reality is that's what's happened.
Any more questions? One more, all right.
Okay, hi. Thank you, Neil. I have 2 questions.
Oh, can you please stand up? I'm sorry, I can't see where.
Sorry, I have 2 questions. First of all, I'm really happy for the positive movement moving forward. We're not going to look back. My first question is like contracts. It seems to me right now the contracts that different businesses had is not going to be the same. You're coming out of the gate a little soft. I mean, not as aggressive per the business. And most importantly, account managers, the talent that has been, you know, that's left your organization, which was critical to helping travel managers to have an account manager from your organization was really powerful and influential because they know your business. All of our travel is different according to our business, but I'd like to see working with the various corporations on contracts that really are suited to their business and also, you know, incentivize our business to use American, because we know there are other airlines out there, JetBlue, Southwest, that are in your markets, but, you know, the 3 big guys are Delta, United, and American. So, you know, I look to the future with a positive outlook, but I feel these are 2, especially for the corporate audience, are very important. You still have the transient business, but the past forgot where the bread and butter was with your corporate partners. So thank you, and I appreciate whatever movement you can bring forward to those upper levels of management, the importance of those relationships.
Well, thank you for that. So just a couple things I'll say about that. First, you're 100% right. Obviously, I think a lot of you know the sales team at American went from very large to very, very small in no time at all. What that meant for those of us that work in the sales team is a whole bunch of our friends who had done their jobs well for a long time left. What we've been doing is starting the process of rehiring and regrowing the organization, and so far we've managed to hire, we almost doubled the size of the team that we have in place, which isn't saying much because it wasn't a very big team, but it's really hard to go hire 100 people when you only have 20 people, right? The training and onboarding is difficult. Luckily, one of the things we've been able to do is actually go hire back some of the folks who left. So we're going to be continuing that process into next year. We're going to get up to a pretty decent size as far as the sales organization goes. and we're going to try to hire as many of those people back as we can. We're also going to try to hire people from other parts of the industry who can bring knowledge to the table that maybe we didn't have before, because we had a whole bunch of people who stayed with American for 30 or 40 years doing their job, and that's great. But we'd be better off having some folks who've worked in the corporate end of travel, and people who've worked with agencies and the like, so that we can better understand our partners. So we have an opportunity to do that, and I think that's important. On the other side of this, though, the contracts, I'm working through it with a theory, and the theory is that everyone in this room would be better off if all 3 of the major U.S. carriers were competing for your business, right? I think that's true. I think everyone wins in a world where everyone's competing for your business. And if we don't have contracts in place that allow us to be competitive on the pricing, then we're not competing for your business, right? We won't be within your lowest logical policy. We won't show up in your booking tool. We won't be a preferred carrier, and we recognize that. So we're going to do our best here as fast as we can. Again, we're still on a bit of a skeleton crew, but we won't be for long in getting that back up to running and trying to get our discounts so they're in line with what you're seeing from your other carriers that you work with. Goal would be that the pricing ends up being about the same across all 3 carriers, and if we can get into that world, then I think we'll have done what we can do to at least show up on the shelf. From there, it's going to take a lot of other things we need to do to be successful.
Yeah. Well, we are out of time, but I will say just on a personal note, first, I am so happy that you're here. And I am happy that you are one of the many executives leading this. And then on a personal/professional note, it's always fun to do business with people that you care about. So that is what this group is about. We care about our customers. We have long-standing relationships, and we couldn't be prouder to give it another go in the relationship that we have with American Airlines. So thank you so much, Neil.
Well, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it.